Hello and welcome to the Columbia Daily Tribune's Courtside View Webcast. This is Tribune Sports Editor Joe Walljasper along with beat writer Steve Walentik. Steve, we just got back from New York where Missouri beat Villanova in a game that kind of, I guess for this season, passes for a close game, but they did beat them by 10 and were in pretty good control the whole way. Was there anything in that game maybe that you learned that you hadn't previously from the season?
Well, I guess we will start with the fact that we could say they were pushed a little bit. It was 6 points with going into the last 5 minutes. That's definitely not a situation they were in the first 7 games, which they won by nearly 28 a game, and all by more than 15. So it was interesting to see how they would react in that situation, and I think they did a pretty good job maintaining the lead. Phil Pressey made a great play, driving to his right, drew a double team his way, and dumped it off to Ricardo Ratliffe for a dunk. And from that point on, they never led by fewer than 7. He set up Marcus Denmon for another basket the next trip down, and from that point on, they were fairly comfortably in control. They did make a couple of mistakes down the stretch. I thought Kim English made a bad decision driving into traffic after a steal, and he also took an ill-advised 3. And I think those sorts of things are things that coaches like to the players to be able to learn from in a game like that. The other things we learned, more big picture, I thought we learned that Marcus Denmon really can take over a game. Missouri was really struggling midway through the first half, had actually fallen behind after a pretty good start, and all of a sudden he scores 12 points in the last 7 minutes of the first half and really puts them in command. And he did it in a hurry. He scored off an inbounds pass and got a layup, came down and hit a 3 in transition, and got a big basket at the end, tipping in a missed shot right before halftime. And maybe the last thing I think we learned is we got to see Ricardo Ratliffe play against another pretty good big man, and a guy bigger than him, Muftau Yaru, who's 6'10", and was averaging 16 points and 8.5 rebounds coming into the game. And I thought Ricardo really outplayed him. Mm-hmm. He's got 18 points. He gets a season-high 11 rebounds. He put Yaru into some foul trouble. I thought that was a positive for this team going forward, that he would respond really in the toughest matchup I think he's had head-to-head so far.
Mm-hmm. He's shown a real nice touch around the basket, too. He can kind of contort himself around and lay the ball in. And some guys don't have that. I mean, he has a way to make it go in the basket. As you've seen, I guess 30 out of the last 32 shots.
I mean,
so that may be an understatement.
Yeah, right now he's leading the country in field goal percentage, and he's giving credit to teammates. He says he's taking shots that he's supposed to be taking, layups and dunks, and it's true, but he's making them at a ridiculous rate, and he's a really good finisher right now.
A couple of things, they left the state for the first time and played pretty well. It wasn't like the games in Kansas City where basically nothing went wrong. I mean, they didn't shoot the ball that well, but they didn't seem at all troubled by playing in a big stage in a foreign environment. Also, I think this year they've rebounded a little better than they did under Mike Anderson. They were, I think, undersized at every position compared to Villanova, and they only got beat on the boards by 1. So that was another pretty positive thing. We haven't seen the rebounding be a big issue as we maybe thought it would have been going into the year.
Not yet, and even if they get rebounded or out-rebounded by 1 or 2 as they did the other night, they're making up for it with the turnover margin.
Yeah, they don't turn it over, and they've been turning teams over.
Yeah, I mean, another 15 or 16 Villanova committed, and they only have 8. Mm-hmm. So they've been really sound with the ball all season long.
All right. Phil Pressey only went 1 for 8 from the field, but I thought played a great game, kind of controlled the game, 12 assists, I believe. We've seen kind of a different Phil Pressey than we saw last year, where he kind of played well in spots, but over the bulk of the year, I think most people would agree that Michael Dixon was the better MU point guard last year. This year, he's really turned it on. Why do you think the reasons are for the improved play?
Well, just for starters, to speak to how good he was the other night, he had 5 assists on their first 6 made field goals. I mean, he really got them going. And that lull that I was talking about earlier in the first half coincided exactly with when he got his second foul and went to the bench. I think they're a different team when he's running the show, and the reason is the ball is in his hands more than it was last year, and that suits him. A lot of times you have a guard that likes to pound the ball into the court, mm-hmm. and that can be a bad thing for a team, because a lot of times that guard ends up shooting the ball when he finally gets done dribbling. And I think Pressey's the rare guy who really is, dribbling the ball to create openings and opportunities for other people. And we saw that on the dunk by Ratliffe that we referenced earlier, where he's able to break his guy down off the dribble, draw another defender to him, and he knows exactly where his teammate's going to be and finds him for a wide open and easy shot. He's doing that sort of thing on a consistent basis. I just think he's comfortable dominating the ball, and he really is the guy that looks to pass first. And it's been a perfect marriage right now with Frank Haith's system.
It's kind of interesting because whenever Mike Anderson left, I think people sort of assumed that Phil Pressey might leave too, just because that was the whole reason he came here, his father's friendship with Mike Anderson. He decides to stay, and really, he's been, to me, the one who's benefited the most from the coaching change. So that's kind of interesting. Defensively, too, I think he's a little better this year. Last year, he just was always gambling, and he would once in a while get a steal, but would get beat quite a bit. And he's doing a better job of staying in front of guys, too, and just kind of being a pest without giving up layups because of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's quick enough, and he's got quick enough hands that he can steal the ball from his man. He doesn't need to go chasing after steals. And he's been, as you said, a lot more sound, just keeping between the man and the basket, and making it difficult on his guy to progress towards the rim. And I think that with his ability to steal the ball makes him a really good defender, and a guy that, going forward in his career, you're going to start hearing him discussed as a Big 12 or Conference Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
All right, Marcus Denmon has scored, I believe, 59 points in his last 2 games. Jay Billis today comes up with a tweet that says, "I have not seen a better or more dynamic all-around guard in college basketball than Missouri's Marcus Denmon," which is pretty high praise from a guy who knows basketball. So I just want to get your thoughts. Is he the best guard in the nation?
Well, I saw that tweet and started looking around for counterexamples, and you're hesitant to make that sort of statement about a guy you watch all the time because you don't want to be too close to it. But it's hard to say that anybody is playing better right now. I think there are a handful of guys who are playing close to the same level, and I would start the list of best guards with Marcus, but I think Jeremy Lamb from Connecticut, who was a first-team preseason All-American, is in that discussion. I think John Jenkins at Vanderbilt, who played with Marcus on that World University Games team over the summer, who was actually on my AP ballot for preseason All-American, I think he's in that discussion, and I think a guy that we didn't really get a chance to watch on Tuesday, but was at Madison Square Garden, was Marquette's Darius Johnson-Odom. He's, I think, one of the best guards in the country. But you start lining up those 4 guys. Marcus is shooting better than really all of them.
I don't think any guard's going to have a better shooting percentage than he is.
Yeah, I mean, right now there are 3. He's tied for 14th in the country at scoring, and there are only 2 other guys shooting 50% from the field and 3-point range right now. One of them is Doug McDermott, who's a forward at Creighton, and the other is Zach Rosen, who's a guard at Penn. And McDermott's having a tremendous year, but I'm nothing against Zach Rosen. I think Denmon does more than him. You talked about the rebounding. I think Marcus gets a lot of credit for them being a better rebounding team. He's 6'3" and going in getting 5.5 rebounds a game. He's their second leading rebounder right now.
Got the tip at the end of the first half that kind of pushed momentum in Missouri's favor.
And I think he's making those kind of plays a lot. He's right now leading all Big 12 players in scoring. He doesn't qualify to lead in assist-to-turnover ratio, but he would. He's got 16 assists and only 4 turnovers, which 4 turnovers in 8 games is really ridiculous. You have to have 3 assists to qualify in that statistic, but I think he's doing everything fundamentally sound. He plays to his strengths. He shoots the ball as well as any guard in the country, and so it's hard to disagree with Jay Billis right now.
Taking the conversation a little different direction, I would say he's the best Missouri guard since who. I'd probably go back to Melvin Booker. They've had some NBA guys that played guard for him. Obviously, Keon Dooling is still in the NBA. Has been for more than 10 years, and then Kareem Rush. But for me, I think Denmon, I would kind of compare him maybe to Melvin Booker, who really kind of took off late in his career and become just a great all-around player. So you can't really beat what he's done so far. Lastly, Missouri, in the most competitive game they played really this year, only used 7 men the whole game, did not play Kadeem Green. Do you think they can hold up the length of a year playing a 7-man rotation?
I think it gets hard. I mean, I think eventually you get into foul trouble more than you can handle. Obviously, coaches, having watched Kadeem Green, don't feel like he's ready to handle those situations just yet.
Yeah, I'm not blaming him for playing.
Right. I think as the year goes on, there's going to be a game where they're going to have to put him in a situation like they faced the other night. I don't know if he's ready to do it or not, but at some point there's probably going to be a game where Ricardo Ratliffe and Kim English both get 2 fouls in the first 12 minutes of a game, and then what do you do? Because it is difficult to play only 7 guys, not get fatigued, and not start committing even more fouls. And also with their lack of size, I still think they're going to be at a disadvantage in some games later on this year when they play people like maybe Kansas that have big bodies who go rebound the ball. They're going to need another big body out there, and I think for them to really reach their ceiling, I think Kadeem is going to have to be able to handle at least a few minutes in those situations.
I do think, though, that when people talk about teams that have good chemistry, but I think a lot of times it is teams that play a shorter rotation because everybody that's playing is getting their minutes and kind of understands their roles better. And I think once you get into the tournament itself, if you can stay out of foul trouble, it's not like exhaustion is a factor.
Yeah,
I mean,
those
timeouts are longer.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're saying, foul trouble I think is one issue. Ricardo's had some trouble with that. He didn't the other night, but most games he's got some early fouls, and so I think that's where Green will have to at least be a guy who can be a placeholder for a few minutes and not let things get out of control.
And obviously, they don't have to have him be much more than, as you say, a placeholder, because Steve Moore has really done a pretty good job.
I've been telling you for years.
I know. His stat line was not anything that jumps out at you the other night, but he makes plays that are just required plays. He's in the right positions. He's boxing out his man. He drew a foul from an over the back foul from Uru. Just being in the right spot, he clogs up the middle, makes it hard for guys to drive to the basket, and I think he's valuable that way. And because he's valuable that way, they're able to steal some minutes with Ricardo on the bench and make it through a whole game only playing 7 guys.
All right, well that does it for this week. Tune in again next week. We'll discuss Missouri's game against Navy.